to the channel. Appreciate you guys for joining. Sorry about that. Just had a quick smoke before starting. Make sure you guys smash the like video. Make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you share this video. I'm going to be talking about my journey from homelessness to where I'm at now, which is my apartment, which I'm very grateful for. I think about that every day. I thank God every day for where I'm at. I wish it wasn't so difficult, and I wish that I didn't make my journey so difficult, but at the end of the day, you learn from the lessons, the mistakes, the progress, everything, right? So, to kind of start this off, this is a pretty much a year, yeah, like a year process from the time I became homeless until I got my apartment where I'm at now. Um, you know, at the time, I was living with family. And, we all know when you live with family, it can be tough. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of disagreements, there's a lot of, bickering back and forth, but nothing too serious, right? It's always just, you live and learn, right? And so where I was at, it basically came to a head, and it was just like, look, this isn't gonna work. You know, you gotta go. That's it. I'm like, well, where am I gonna go? They're like, well, we know there's a shelter down in the city. And at this point, I had already been looking for apartments, right? But just financially, I couldn't afford it, right? Or at least for the deposit. So I was like, damn, a shelter. Like, I've never been in a shelter at all, never been through the system, none of that. So I'm like, I gotta go to a shelter? They're like, yeah. So I'm like, fuck, like, this is insane, right? And I'll never forget the drive down there was so uncomfortable, right? Because you got all my stuff in the back seat. And I remember pulling up to the shelter and saying to myself, holy shit, this is not good. This is like worst case scenario, code red, like this ain't good. But I gotta be here. Um, at this point, I don't have many friends that I can say, hey, can I come stay with you for a little bit while I get my shit together? Um, certainly no family at this point. And I just remember saying, okay, I have to stick this out, right? I have to stick this out for as long as I need to in order to get out of the shelter and get my own place, right? Um, Thank you guys for joining, by the way. Make sure you smash the like, make sure you subscribe as well, please. Um, so my first day in the shelter, I was like, okay, this place is fucked up. Like, this place is like insane. There's people running around, there's fights, there's drugs, there's everything there, right? Because it's in the city. And I'll never forget, it was almost like jail. Now, I've never been to jail, I've never been locked up, but I have, friends who've been locked up. And I remember telling them, like, yo, this place is like jail. This is like prison. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you don't have any rights while you're here. Like, you do not have any sort of structure. There's no support. It's just you and you're fending for yourself, right? And I remember going, I'm not gonna make it here, right? So my first, what's going on, Navy? Appreciate you. So my first night, I cried. Like, I literally was crying the first night because I'm in a strange place. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know anybody in here. And I, you know, I miss home. I miss my family. I'm not trying to be here. And I'm feeling like this is a mistake, right? I don't belong here. There's no way in hell I'm gonna survive here. This is like this is crazy. And I remember I wanted to call my family. I wanted to call I wanted to look, talk to them and be like, listen, can I come back? I don't want to be here. And I said, the next day I was like, all right, I need to figure out like I need to figure out like my way out of here because I can't stay here. And So the next morning, we all had to get up 5 a.m., right? 5 a.m., we all have to wake up. And, they're serving breakfast, which is basically just leftover Wawa sandwiches, but whatever. And I was, I'm not eating that because they're stale. They don't look fresh. But I grabbed one, right? And I'll never forget. It was a bacon, egg, and cheese on a plain bagel, and it was hot. And I remember saying to myself, you know what? I could eat this, right? But I don't want to. So I remember I opened it up, right, just to like see it, and the egg smelled so fucking bad, and the cheese was just it smelled bad. The bacon looked undercooked, and I'm like, they're serving this shit to us. Like they want us to leave and go out in the world, and this is what they're feeding us? Hell no. So I gave it to somebody out on the street. I gave it to somebody. I said, "Here, you want a sandwich?" Boom, gave it to them. So, and this is all on the first day, right? So throughout the day, I'm, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out who to call, who I can talk to, who I can figure this out with. Like, I don't know anything about what I'm trying to do. I just know I don't want to be at that shelter, right? And I remember I I remember I texted one of my friends and I didn't tell them what was going on. I just said, "Hey, like, do you know any places for rent?" And this person lived in Philadelphia, right? Hola, what's going on, Jaya? So this person lived in Philadelphia, and I said, "Hey, do you know any places for rent, any rooms, stuff like that, right?" And they was like, "No, not at this moment, but I'll get back to you." Never got back to me. I was like, "Damn." Um, I remember asking a few people from like the church I used to go to, and nothing, right? Some buddies of mine at work. Now, mind you, I'm still in the service at this time, which is crazy, right? Like a homeless veteran, like that's insane, right? And I remember saying to myself, this can't be real. Like, there's no way I'm going to work thinking everything's okay, and then I gotta go back to a shelter at the end of the day. Like, that's insane, right? And if anybody knew anything about this, there's no way they would let this happen. But my pride, my I guess you could say ego, my unwillingness to get help at the very moment I needed helped start my downfall, right? And I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of that at all. I'm not gloating about it. I'm not like none of that. I was way too stubborn, right? But I've always been like that. I've always been the type to like not ask for help, not, you know, reach out because I always think, well, I can figure this out, right? I can do this myself. And 9 times out of 10, I usually do. But this one particular issue, being homeless, I couldn't do that. Like, there was no way that I was going to be able to figure this out by myself with no support, no nothing, right? So, throughout my time at the shelter, I was reaching out to local services, local, food pantries, local, people who just like, you know, who who I felt at that moment they could help, right? They had resources, they knew people, whatever, right? And by this time, this is like a couple months in, and I start realizing like this is not going to go the way I thought. Now we're into Christmas, going into the new year. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, absolutely no fucking clue, right? I'm no closer at that point than I was when I first got there. And by this time, I'd made a few, I guess you could say friends, but, it's almost like in prison, you never really make friends. You just meet people that don't stab you in the back. Um, so in this case, I had met a few people who were cool. You can talk to them, have a conversation, whatever. And, you know, just as a side note, when you see a homeless person, don't always assume that they're broke and have nothing because A lot of them by circumstance happened up in there. I met people who were CEOs of their company, who had businesses, who had families, who had tons of money, who had tons of everything. They just went down a wrong, you know, a wrong turn, you know. And so I met a couple of those people, and a lot of them were like, "Listen, you'll be all right. You're still young. You can figure this out." You know, these guys are in their, 40s, 50s, 60s, so they know like you have plenty of time, right? As a how old was I? I was 28, no, 29, right? So they're telling me, look, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be all right. Just keep your head down, focus, stay out of trouble. You'll be all right. You'll make it out of here, right? And they kept saying that. They kept saying, "You're gonna make it. You're gonna make it. You're gonna make it." But by this time, I'm not believing them, right? So now we're getting into the new year. You know, everyone's excited. They're like, "Oh, we're in 2025. All this," and I'm just depressed. I'm like, I don't want to celebrate anything. I don't want to be anywhere. I just want to like go to bed. I just want to lay down. I don't want to be anywhere. I don't want to celebrate. I don't want to talk to anybody. Like I spent Thanksgiving, I spent Christmas outside, no family, no friends. I didn't want to go anywhere. And so while this is going on, I'm now starting to become real depressed. Like I'm not talking to anybody um, outside of a few people. Taking care of myself. I'm losing weight. I'm essentially saying, look, I don't want to live anymore. Like I don't. I'd rather be dead. I'd rather just kill myself. I'd rather like just not be here at all. Cause what's the point, right? No one's coming to help. No one's coming to rescue me. I'm not gonna get some huge lump sum of money and all of a sudden everything's fine. Like no, this isn't happening, right? It's hopeless. Like I'm done. I'm gonna die out here, and that's that. And you know, I I felt like that for about a good 2, 3 weeks, in January, right? This past January. And then like fourth week came by and something snapped. Something clicked where I just said, you know what? I can't quit on myself. You know, I I I can't give up. I have too much going on. I have too much riding on this. There's no way, right? So I said, okay, I gotta get my shit together. I gotta get out of here. I can't just, quit. I can't just say, well, I'm giving up, right? And again, I don't know what it was. I to this day, I still don't know what it was that made me realize, okay, I can't stay in this situation, right? So I'll never forget. This was the first week of February. I went to my notes in my phone and I started writing, you know, what my goals were for this day, right? What are my goals for the week? What are my goals for the month? What do I need to do in order to get out of the shelter, right? Um, and that would sound good in the morning when you have all day to figure shit out. But by about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and you realize I gotta go back because I'm not gonna get a bed if I'm not back by 6 o'clock. You start realizing, okay, I don't really have as much time as I think. Like a lot of these services, they open up 8, 9 o'clock. You might not hear from somebody till about 10, 11 o'clock if you start taking it serious. But that doesn't mean by the end of the day you'll have something concrete and something done, right? And so that's what I was learning each day. I would make phone calls to different services, homeless agencies, housing agencies in the city. And what I started realizing was a lot of these services, they're available, but they're only available for you to learn. They're not actually going to help you because at this point, realistically, they can't do much, right? But I'm still calling, right? Making my phone calls. I'm still like, hey, I'm a veteran. I need help. I'm homeless. Here's where I'm at. You know, I don't have any criminal history, blah, blah, blah. I need help, financial help, housing, whatever, the whole 9 yards, right? So this goes on for about, let's see, we're in February. So March, and then April, right? So for about another 2 months, I'm doing the same thing. Every day, I'm making phone calls. I'm reaching out to different places. I'm even looking for a job, like just something to where like I can have some purpose while I'm out the shelter. And I'll never forget. Um, this was April. I want to say 25th or 26th, right? It was the last week of April, I remember. And I was sitting in chapel at the shelter one evening, and I saw and I saw this pamphlet for the SSVF, which is basically a veterans service for homeless veterans, right? They place you in housing and all this other stuff. So I said, what's this? Like, and I remember picking it up, and funny enough, I was one of three veterans at that shelter I was in. The other person actually was a minister at the shelter, or a preacher, excuse me. And then the other guy was a bunkmate of mine, right? So we kind of all knew, like, we don't really belong here, right? So I grabbed the pamphlet, I start reading it, and on the back, there's a number, like a number and an email. And I remember saying to myself, I should write this down and email these people tomorrow. But I thought I did that already, because mind you, I had been looking for months at this time, and I never heard of these people. So I'm like, all right, I need to like lock in, right, get this done. And I remember like making the phone call, and lady I spoke to, she was very nice, very respectful, and she says, "Yeah, come on in. We'll interview you, right?" So the first thing I thought is like, "Damn, this is a whole interview process. I don't, you know, I'm screwed because I'm not prepared for this." By this time, all my stuff had been stolen, had been thrown away. I'd lost pretty much everything that I had. All my possessions, all my belongings, outside of my book bag, which had my uniform, which had my pretty much everything else that I had. Right. I had no ID. I had no birth certificate. I had no social security number or social security card. I had absolutely nothing to identify me. So if I was to die before this all happened, there's no way to identify me, right? So, um, so I'll never forget. Leading up to all this, um, I had obtained my driver's license at this time, right? And that was all I had was my driver's license, and I think I had my birth certificate. Like I had just gotten it, right? So that's all that I had, right? And I'll never forget going into that meeting, and I sat down with everybody on board, and I remember saying to myself, I have to make this happen. Like, there's no way that I'm walking out this building without anything concrete happening. So, in terms of like placement. So, we finish up, everything goes well. The lady tells me, hey, we'll be in contact, right? Give us your phone number, email, we'll stay in contact. I'm thinking, okay, well, this will drag on for like a couple more months because these places don't really, you know, whatever, right? Well, a couple days later, I get an email. I get an email from these people at the program, and they said, "Hey, good news! You qualified. You're eligible, right?" And I remember thinking, "I'm eligible. Like, why wouldn't I be? Right? I didn't think like they actually had to do a background check, a whole screening process. I didn't think it was like that. I thought it was just, hey, we're here to help you, and that's that. So I'm like, okay, great. What happens now? They're like, well, we're gonna try to find you some places, but we'll stay in contact. I'm like, okay. Then later that afternoon, around I want to say 12, 1ish, right? I get another email from the same lady. She's like, hey, some good news. I'm like, what? She goes, I found a place for you, like a home, a veteran's home, right? Here's the address. Here's the person that you're going to meet, right? Here's the POC. Here's everything you know about it. You're going to go here tomorrow, which was, I want to say a Wednesday, Thursday, I believe. I don't remember the day, but, um, and I was like, perfect. Like, this is great. This is what I needed. And so I was like, what do I need to bring? They said, well, just, bring yourself, bring whatever you need. But, you know, they said, if you like the place, you can stay there. I was like, what? And like that didn't register to me. Like, I'm getting out the shelter. I just thought, okay, well, here's a program, blah, 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 but I'm still gonna be out on the street like I was. So I'm like, okay, cool. So next day I wake up. Well, no, backtrack. So day goes on. I go back to the shelter, right? And at this point, I'd been telling people, hey, I think I'm getting out of here. I think I'm getting out of here, right? Because things were progressing and, you know, I had all these interviews and all this other shit. So I'm like, all right, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of here, right? And so my bunkmate, um, he he used to sell like snacks and stuff, right? So I'd help him out with that. That became my thing. And I remember telling him, like, dude, like, bro, I'm getting out of here. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm out of here. Like, this is legit happening. He's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm getting out of here. Like, this is exciting, and it was. It was like the most exciting moment of my life. So I'm like, I don't know how to feel right now because I've been here for what, 8, 9 months at this point. I don't know what to do when I leave. He's like, dude, you get a second chance at this. Like, don't blow it. You got it. So I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, okay, I got this, right? So like all night I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep not one bit. Um, Woke up, or next day comes, leave, and I was like, holy shit, this is really happening. But the interview wasn't until I think 10 o'clock, I believe. So from 5 o'clock in the morning, from 5 a.m. to 10, that's quite a bit as far as like the anticipation. So I'm like, yo, like, I'm really leaving this place. Like, I'm done. I don't have to go back, you know? Because I'd been asking questions like, hey, like, do I stay at this place? Whatever, whatever, right? So I'll never forget. I went to the gym 5:30, left at about 7 something, got a good workout in, showered, left, went to the mall, and I basically stayed there at the mall till it was time to go to the appointment. And I was like, I was excited, right? So I get to the house and I walk in. Well, first off, the veterans home was the last house on a corner, right? So and it blended in with every other house that was on the block. So you couldn't really tell like what was what. So I'll never forget. I walked up and I didn't see the sign that they had up there, but they said the door will be open and they'll let you in. And I remember thinking, there's no way that this is the place. The door is wide open. Like, no one does that here in the city. So I remember I walked up, introduced myself. I said, hey, my name's Anthony. They was like, oh, yeah, come on in. I was like, this is it? They're like, yeah. I walk in, little tiny office, and I'm like, okay. And then one of the guys, he says, hey, come with me. I'll give you a tour. And this house is beautiful. This house is, pretty big. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay, it's not bad. Um, Nice kitchen, living room setup. And, we go upstairs and he's showing me all the bedrooms. There's like 5 bedrooms. And I was like, okay, okay, that's cool, that's cool. And then he's like, yeah, what do you think? And I'm like, it's not bad. And he goes, all right, you want to stay here? And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, like, you want to stay here? I'm like, what do you mean stay here? Like, what do you mean? He's like, do you want to stay here? And I was like, so I can like live here. He was like, yeah, what'd you think this was? I was like, I don't know what I thought this was. I didn't think it was this, right? He was like, yeah, no, like that's what we do here. We house homeless veterans. I was like, whoa. I was like, okay. So he goes, yeah. So I'm like, okay, bet. Like this is perfect. So, you know, I pick a bedroom, put my stuff down, there's fresh sheets, and I'm like, holy shit, I get a bed. Like a real bed. Not some bullshit, right? Like an actual bed. And I was like, this is incredible. And I remember like I remember when the interview process was over, right? And I signed all the paperwork and I signed everything and, told them my story and I told them what I was trying to do and all this other stuff. They was like, okay, you're good to go. Like, hang out, enjoy yourself, do whatever you want. And, we'll see you next week. I was like, okay. I remember in that moment, I got really hungry because I hadn't eaten. I hadn't eaten in like 4 days at this point, but I, was surviving off of water and like, I think I had like protein shakes, like the little Ensures or whatever. So I hadn't had real food in like days. So I was starving. And I remember going in the pantry and seeing like, you know, canned food, instant mashed potatoes, the beef stew packets from the food bank. And I remember thinking, you know what? I'm gonna make something out of this because I'm starving. And I remember I grabbed the instant mashed potatoes and I grabbed the beef stew, made that. And I remember I had some salt, like little salt packets from like the rest the from the fast food joints I used to go to. Because I always saved it because you never know. And I remember, you know, pouring the salt, a little bit of pepper. I had some garlic powder, and I mixed it all up. That was it. It was great. One of the best meals I ever made. And that was one of the first times I actually was like, holy shit, I made something. It wasn't bought, it wasn't made for me. I did this myself. Something as simple as instant mashed potatoes and, some beef stew. Like, come on. But it was pretty fucking good, right? So I remember the plate was like huge. It was like freaking, it was insane. And I remember going, I'm not eating all this, right? But I'm starving. So I ate the whole thing. I was full, stomach hurting, got the itis. And I remember I sat down in the living room in the reclining chair and I was like, I need to take a nap. But I was so scared to take a nap because I hadn't been anywhere other than outside or in the shelter. So I don't know if I can take a nap. I don't know the rules here. I don't know if I can go to bed or do whatever. I thought this was all structured. You have a bedtime, you have a wake up time, all that. So one of the guys, the veterans living there, he happened to be sitting across from me and he goes, hey, like, are you okay? And I was like, honestly, not at this moment. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing. He goes, well, he says, well, if you're tired, you can go, go to sleep. It's fine. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, there's no rules here in terms of wake up time and going to bed. Like there's curfew in terms of when the door's locked, but you're good to go. You're free. You don't have to worry about shit. And I was like, are you serious? And like that took me like a month, I'll be honest. It took me about a month and a half to kind of settle in and not be like looking over my shoulder like holy shit. And you know, by this time I had been out the shelter for a couple months and they start trying to have you look at places because they're like, hey, we need you to figure out your game plan. What are you going to do? And I remember going like, well, I kind of need to like get a job, right? So I was like, okay, I need a job. I need to figure this out. And so they start trying to help. They look for jobs for you. They help find job programs in the city and, I'm looking online, I'm doing all this research, and finally I'm like, you know what? Probably not gonna work, right? So now they're like, well, what are you gonna do for money? Because I'm on disability at this time, but I'm not getting much, right? Actually, it had decreased at this time. So I was like, well, I don't know. They're like, well, you need to do something because, we can't have you staying here. You're not working. You're not doing this. I'm like, okay. Um, that eventually doesn't wind up mattering in the long run, but at the time they were really pressing me to get a job and figure this out. So I remember like towards the end, because I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit, towards the end, when things started getting real serious in terms of finding a place, and I knew like, okay, this is where I'm gonna live, and this is where the direction is going. I remember feeling very anxious and very nervous because I hadn't lived on my own in, at that point, it had been 2 years, three, yeah, 2 to 3 years at this point. So I was like extremely nervous. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna make it out here, right? But I had to trust myself, right? So in trusting myself, I said, fuck it, we're going for it. So the place I'm at right now, my apartment, which I love, every day I wake up and I'm like, wow, I'm actually here. Um, I remember getting the keys. The drive up here was so, it was so like just, it was beautiful. It was like, holy shit. Like my life's about to change. Like this is incredible. And oh my god. And I remember like getting here and you know, I had like no food in this place. I had no food at all. And the movers who helped move, they came back about a half hour later after they set everything up and they brought me Burger King. These guys brought me Burger. I don't know why they did, but they did. And I was like, hey, here you go. You know, we thought of you. We got you a Whopper, some fries, a Coke. I don't drink Coke, but I was grateful. I said, thank you. I'll never forget the first bite. I bit into it and I was like, oh my God, like this is incredible. And I was so appreciative in that moment. I was so grateful in that moment. Like, this is it. Like I got my place. I did it. Right? Like I did it. I fucking did it. Right? And the first night, I was so excited. I didn't sleep. I literally was up all night because I couldn't believe I had my own place. And I remember the next day, one of the people from the program called. They said, hey, how are you settling in? I was like, this is great. I didn't think this would happen. I didn't think any of this would happen because by this time last year, I was in the street. I slept outside in the fucking snow. I slept in the snow and I had nobody. So I was so relieved to be safe. I was so relieved to be fucking safe. And I remember those days. Oh, God. And I just, like, I thank God every day. I thank Him for every day that I'm here. I can look outside and I can see the sky, the trees, the leaves, the grass, the people. Apartment and be safe. I don't have to worry about nobody. So fucking beautiful. And I share this story with everybody. Whoever watches this, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, 5 years, I don't give a shit. If you watch this video, remember, it's not too late. It is not too late. It is never too late to change your life and change your circumstance. If I can do it, as somebody who literally was on the streets, who was homeless, who had no direction, took a chance on himself and said, you know what, I'm going for it. I want you to do that. Whoever watches this and goes, I have nothing. I want the person that says, I have nothing to give in this world. I'm going to walk away from it. I'm going to kill myself. I don't care anymore. You watch videos like mine, you watch motivational shit, and you pour yourself out. Because I promise you, there is a different way. There's a better way. There's a better future for you. And that's my message. I apologize, I got emotional, but I truly, truly believe that we all have a purpose in life. Every one of us has a purpose in this world. We just have to find it. And sometimes it takes 1 or 2 tries. Sometimes it takes 10 tries, but you keep going. You don't quit. You don't stop. You don't stop. You don't quit. Because when you quit, you never realize your destiny. You never realize your purpose. You never realize what you're meant for. And so I share my story. It's on my TikTok. Go watch it. You know, I'm building a platform for people who have given up on themselves, who feel they have no direction, they have no path, no hope. And I want to make those people successful. I want to make those people realize their dreams can happen. You just have to push a little bit more. Just a little bit. Enough to say you put the effort in. And everything else will work itself out. I don't promise anything. I don't say this is guaranteed to happen. I don't do that. The only guarantees in life is what? Death. That is the only guarantee we have in this life, that one day we will all not be here. But while we're here, we have to make a change. We have to make a difference in our lives and the people we care about, the people that support us, even the people that hate us. Because deep down, they only hate us because they can't achieve what we can achieve. Excuse the background noise. But I want people to watch this video and remind yourselves that everything and anything is possible. Because if I can do it, you can do it too. God bless you, everybody. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video. And let's build this community, guys. Let's go. Love y'all.